Finally, after over 15 goddamn years, we have a good Transformers movie. Yes, I know Bumblebee is the best one, but this is the first good one with Transformers in the title. Look, I rewatched all the Michael Bay movies before this one, so I'm taking what few victories I can get. The long-awaited sequel to Bumblebee / the adaptation of the beloved Beast Wars show is finally here, and it's honestly way better than I thought it was going to be. Directed by Stephen Caple Jr., the director of Creed 2, this film follows the Transformers in the 90s as they have to work with the Maximals to take down Unicron before he can consume Earth and Cybertron as well. I was a very big fan of the Michael Bay Transformers movies when I was a kid. Despite them not being at all good for kids to watch, it blew my mind seeing those giant robots do battle in big cities with insane levels of carnage and destruction. But as I got older and the 4th and 5th film released, the cracks really began to show, and the novelty of these big robots blowing things up just didn't work anymore. Then, in 2018, kind of out of nowhere, they released Bumblebee, a prequel centering around its title character. Rather than be a huge action spectacle with bad humor and even worse characters, it crafted a narrative that was still able to keep in the fun action, but actually create an emotional bond with Haley Steinfeld and her Transformer. So, to see the director of the best Creed film, and yes, I will die on this hill, make a Transformers movie got me really excited. And, while this retains the good character work in Heart of Bumblebee, it's more obvious here just why Bay's films did so well despite their numerous flaws. So, right off the bat, this is infinitely better than all of Bay's Transformers movies. You not only care about the human characters, but the Transformers as well. Yes, it took them this long to make a movie with characters we care about, but if it takes 15 years to write one good character, then anything is possible. Anthony Ramos and Dominic Fishback both do good stuff here, and it's nice to see a movie of this size have a male and female character not end up together at the end. They stay friends from beginning to end, and it's honestly refreshing to see that. Even when performing around giant robot monkeys that aren't there, they're giving it their all. While it can be easy to nitpick the flaws of the film's narrative, it's basically just a fetch quest for a MacGuffin at the end of the day, I'd argue the narrative isn't what really matters. The stakes are well established, the characters are well defined and likable, and the action set pieces feel naturally progressed rather than awkwardly implemented. That being said, by being so simple and just being a fetch quest, there were times where the pacing did wear thin and I was wondering when were we going to move on and get to the next thing. It starts out well paced, then starts to drag in the middle and picks up again at the end. It's not the biggest hindrance, but it is noticeable. The biggest thing that I keep going back to though with this is its action set pieces, particularly the final battle. While I don't think it's entirely fair to judge filmmakers against what others have done, I do think because of how much Bayisms are integrated into the series, it should be noted. For all of their flaws, Bay never skimped on the action and spectacle. Whether it be set in the streets of Chicago or the deserts of Egypt, Bay's action set pieces felt huge and alive. Bay always had a knack for shooting on location with as much practical effects as possible. This way, it not only looks better, but it feels real. While you don't always feel for the characters and what's going on, you're never bored while watching it because you know what's happening in front of you is really there. While the action here isn't poorly done, it does just feel like another modern blockbuster, and that isn't the biggest compliment. While the stakes are well established and I can tell what's going on, by being set in this gray, barren landscape with no real locations or effects in sight, the feeling of dread and urgency is completely lost. The Transformers movies were able to stand out amongst other blockbusters for the longest time because they still had a practical approach to how they did their action. But as we dive more and more into green screens and volume sets, it honestly makes me miss when someone like Michael Bay made movies like these. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie is leagues better because Stephen Caple Jr. made it, but it becomes more noticeable with a lot of filmmakers these days who came out of the smaller, more indie-sided filmmaking and who came from bigger, more blockbuster filmmaking. That isn't to say indie filmmakers can't direct big blockbusters, they most certainly can, but a lot of times it doesn't feel the same as when more experienced blockbuster filmmakers make them. While indie directors can definitely craft narratives that make you feel for the characters, the action can range from good to just okay. Often the characters get forced onto a green screen with a bland gray color palette, and it isn't that exciting to watch. Had the character work not been done as well, then the film ultimately wouldn't have been as good. As the filmmaker gains more experience working in this size and scale, not only can the action improve, but the practicality behind it as well. If you look at Ryan Coogler and his Black Panther films, While the first film still has one of the best narratives and some of the best characters in any comic book movies, the action leaves a lot to be desired. But when the sequel, Wakanda Forever, came out, the action was far better here than the first one. There was true weight to the fights and characters and a sense of realism as well. Coogler clearly took the lessons he learned from the first film and was able to craft far stronger and better action sequences because of it. Again, I don't think the action is bad. This is a good time at the movies. I just honestly miss that sense of practicality and realism that filmmakers like Michael Bay brought to films like this. At the end of the day, Transformers Rise of the Beasts is a good fun time at the movies. The characters are all likable and interesting, the action, while missing what made Bay's work, is ultimately fun and enjoyable to watch, and despite the pacing issues, there is a decent story at play here. While it may not hit every note right, Rise of the Beasts is definitely a step in the right direction for this franchise going forward, and I'm more than ready to see what they've got in store. I'm going to give Transformers Rise of the Beasts a 7 out of 10.